Sometimes we believe we are loving, caring, giving ourselves, but in reality, we're sabotaging ourselves, and we don't even realize it. We repeat behaviors, repeat gestures, insist on patterns that look like affection but are actually control, fear, disguised emotional neediness. It looks like love, but it isn't. It looks like care, but it's attachment. It looks like surrender, but it's escape. The hardest part? We learn to hurt ourselves so subtly that we believe it's normal. This text is a mirror, an invitation to look within and identify what you call love, but that may actually be harming your relationships with others and with yourself. Because there are behaviors that seem beautiful on the surface, but are symptoms of a lack you don't want to face. And as long as you don't face it, you'll keep thinking you're loving while you're just repeating self-sabotage. There's no judgment here, only clarity, only truth, only a call to break away from what's keeping you distant from your essence. True love begins when you stop confusing pain with intensity, control with care, absence with freedom. The kind of love that builds doesn't need masks, but the kind that destroys often comes disguised as affection. On this path of healing, the first step is recognition. And you'll notice that you've lived through more than one of these behaviors. That doesn't make you wrong, it makes you human. But now it's time to choose differently. Comment here. I want to live a love that heals me, not one that confuses me. Like, share and subscribe, because this isn't just content, it's reconstruction. Caring too much, you think you're being attentive, that you're showing love, that taking care of someone all the time is the most beautiful way to show affection. But deep down, that care might be excessive. It might be fear of losing. It might be an attempt to control the environment so the other person doesn't leave. Because when self-love is weakened, we try to guarantee someone else's presence with an excess of our own. You anticipate needs, do things no one asked for, proudly put yourself second. But over time, it becomes a burden, not love. And the other person often can't give anything back, not out of malice, but because the space is already taken. There's no exchange when only one person is giving too much. There's imbalance, and imbalance doesn't sustain healthy affection. Loving isn't about solving someone else's life. It's about walking together with autonomy and respect. Care that suffocates isn't affection. It's insecurity trying to disguise itself. And every time you care too much, you might be trying to numb the fear of being abandoned. What you call love might be an attempt to control. What you feel as care might be a way of trying to prove you're worthy. But the love that heals doesn't require constant effort. It flows with lightness, with trust. And when you stop caring just to secure, you start caring out of choice. And that's the difference. Waiting for the other to change. You love the potential. You love what the person could be. You love the idea, the promise. And so, you stay. You insist. You wait. You believe that time will turn the other into the person you see, even if they never promised it, even if they're not heading in that direction. You stay, hoping that one day they'll wake up and transform. But that's not love. It's lack. It's projection. It's hope turning into a prison. When you love someone for what they could be, and not for what they already are, you stop loving what's real. You fall in love with an invented version. And that hurts. Because time passes, and the person stays the same. And you stay frustrated, confused, disappointed. Self-sabotage lives there, in the attachment to fantasy. You hold on to a hypothetical future to avoid facing the reality of the present. And the more you wait, the more drained you become. Because you annul yourself, shape yourself, adapt yourself. In trying to hold on to what never was, you move further from what could be. True love doesn't wait for change. It connects to the other person's truth, to what is, not to what might be someday. When you understand that, you start choosing with more clarity. And stop insisting on the impossible just because you're afraid to start over. Loving isn't about expecting transformation. It's about choosing reality with truth, with maturity, forgetting yourself to maintain the relationship. It starts little by little. You stop doing things you enjoy, dressing how you like, going out with people who are good for you. You abandon hobbies, ideas, dreams, because you want to please, to avoid conflict, to keep the other close. And without realizing it, you start to erase yourself. You start to disappear, and you call that love. But what looks like surrender is actually abandonment of yourself. It's silent self-sabotage, because no love that demands you lose yourself is worth it. No relationship should ask you to stop being who you are. When you give in too much, dim yourself too much, adapt too much, love turns into a prison. The worst kind of loneliness is being with someone and not recognizing yourself anymore. And that's the price of self-sabotage, self-forgetting. You think you're being flexible, generous, but in truth, you're slowly ceasing to exist, drifting away from your essence. Loving is sharing, not disappearing. Loving is adding, not subtracting. You don't need to stop being who you are to be loved. You need to be who you are and be accepted exactly as such. And if it's not like that, it's not love. It's fear, confusing jealousy with love. You feel jealous and you think, it's because I love, it's because I care. And maybe you even enjoy when the other person gets jealous too, because it feels like proof that they care. But what you call love might actually be insecurity, lack of trust, a need for control disguised as affection. Jealousy isn't romantic. It's not tenderness. It's a sign that something is unbalanced. And when it becomes a routine, it suffocates. It creates tension, competition, fear. And fear doesn't go with love. True love trusts, chooses, believes, respects the other's space. Self-sabotage here is believing that jealousy strengthens the bond, when in fact it weakens it. It introduces doubt, pressure, surveillance. Love doesn't monitor. Love embraces. And someone who loves doesn't need to control, because they know you can't hold anyone by force. When you feel jealousy, pause and ask, what am I trying to protect? What am I missing in myself? The other is just a mirror, and what hurts is often an old wound, an old fear. Treat the root, not the symptom. Love doesn't need proof, only true presence. Trying to save the other. You believe you can be the cure, that your love will transform, that your patience will fix everything. You get involved with hurt, confused, unstable people, and place yourself in the role of savior, of emotional therapist, of light in the dark. And you call it a mission, devotion, love. But love is not saving. Love is walking together, supporting, yes, but not carrying. When you take on the savior role, you're actually placing yourself above and forgetting to take care of yourself. You're trying to become indispensable because you think that will prevent abandonment. But no one can save another. Each person has to choose their own healing. And when you insist on carrying them, you end up hurting yourself because it drains you, because you give more than you receive, because you become support, but never a true partner. Self-sabotage lives in the illusion that being indispensable guarantees love, but love that needs to be sustained by constant sacrifice isn't love. It's emotional dependency. You don't need to be a hero. You need to be whole. And to love in a balanced way, constantly seeking approval. You act based on what the other will think. You shape yourself, edit yourself, monitor yourself, smile at the right time, agree to avoid conflict, do more than you can, give more than you have, all to be seen, accepted, loved. But deep down, you're trying to earn love like you're applying for a job. That's not love. It's self-sabotage. Because while you seek approval, you stop being authentic. You stop truly existing. And love is only real when it's free, when it comes from truth, not performance. Seeking approval is a sign of an old wound, of someone who didn't feel enough, and is now trying to guarantee that this time they'll be loved. But true love doesn't require approval. It flows, it sees, it accepts. You don't need to prove you deserve love. You need to own who you are. When you show up fully, the right love stays, the wrong love walks away, and both are liberating. Your authenticity is your filter. Use it. Fearlessly. Confusing intimacy with fusion. You believe loving means merging. No secrets. Sharing everything. Being glued together all the time. You feel you need to know everything, be in everything, be everything in the other person's life. And you call that connection. But often, it's emotional dependence. Loving is not fusing. It's meeting. It's walking side by side, not inside each other. When you confuse love with fusion, you start to lose yourself. You begin to live the other's life and forget your own. And then, when the relationship shakes, you fall apart because you no longer know who you are without it. Self-sabotage here is believing intensity equals intimacy. But real intimacy happens when there's space, when each one has their own world and still chooses to connect, when there is freedom within the bond. You don't need to disappear to love. You need to remain whole. A relationship isn't fusion. It's intersection. It's exchange. And healthy love respects limits, space, and pauses. The more you recognize yourself, the more you can be recognized. And only then can love be sustained. Be sustained. Healing begins with the courage to see true love doesn't hurt. What hurts are the wounds we carry, and that we call love. When you start seeing the patterns, the disguises, the self-sabotage, you start freeing yourself. And that freedom takes you to a new place, a place of lightness, of truth, of presence. Now comment here, I want to live a love that heals me, not one that confuses me. That's more than a sentence. It's a commitment. Like, share, and subscribe. Here, we speak of feelings with truth, without romanticizing pain, without pretending everything's fine. We heal together, be sweet and strong,